Okay, folks, section 5.1, factoring integers. I am sorry that I can't be with you today, but that's the great thing about the recordings is that they let me be with you even when I'm not, and I know that's probably a pain for you, but it's really good for me. So let's go ahead and get started here. It says factoring integers. Now we're learning, we want to practice with this. You guys have been doing this for 150 years, but we want to practice it because we're going to use it in that same idea when we're factoring expressions, algebraic expressions, all right? So let's, just before we get started with this first example, let's look at 3 times 4. 3 times 4 gives me 12, okay? So when I multiply these two things, I'm going to get 12. But if I gave you 12, you would be able to separate it into its factors. 3 times 4, or 1 times 12, or 2 times 6, or negative 3 times negative 4. That would give me positive 12. That's something to consider as well. Okay? So factoring is unmultiplying. Okay? So that's what we're going to practice here. Now, this bit right here, it says list all pairs of factors of each integer. So I'm going to take 20 first. Okay? Now, I hope you saw what I did with the negatives. We'll talk about that in just a second as I get there, but first I'm going to start with 1, and of course 1 times 20 gives me 20. Then I'm going to say, well, does 2 go into it? Sure, 2 times 10, that gives me 20. Does 3 go into it? No, 3 doesn't. 2 plus 0 is 2. If I add the digits, 2 and 0, I get 2, and 3 doesn't go into 2, so 3 doesn't go into the number. Does 4 go into it? Yep, 4 times 5. Okay. Does 5 go into it? Well, you know what? I don't need to ask that question again. As soon as I'm counting up for these numbers, as soon as I get to the bottom number on the other side, which is 5, I can stop. Those are all the positive factors of 20. But what I have to remember is that if I multiply two negatives, I also get a positive. So it's really negative 1 times negative 20. That gives me positive 20. Negative 2 times negative 10 gives me positive 20. Negative 4 times negative 5 gives me positive 20. Okay? So these are all the factors of 20. Okay? Now, let's look at negative 20. Okay. Well, remember, to get a negative number when I'm multiplying, one has to be negative and one has to be positive. So I can do negative 1 times 20 and 1 times negative 20. Both of those give me negative 20. Negative 2 times 10 and 2 times negative 10. Those both give me negative 20. Negative 4 times 5 and 4 times negative 5. Those both give me negative 20. Right, Dylan? That's right. Dylan's not here, but I'm just yelling at him because I know that he's looking at me weird anyway. So there you go. Right, Dylan? Good. Thanks, man. All right. Now, these are all of the factors for negative 20. Excellent. Good job. Let's look at the next example.